Everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Is Luka Dončić an early favorite for MVP? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, Andy. This one is always going to be free for you. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. It's where you can go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel, all of whom we hope are leaving us mailbag questions, because we put the call out once again for mailbag questions as we head into late August, early September. Perfect time to send us the questions you want to see addressed on the show. So plenty of interesting.
By the way, if you want to leave those mailbag questions, go to either the community section of the YouTube channel. That's where the posts are. Leave your question in the comments section, or you could hit us up on Twitter at CamBrothers. You could also leave questions along with a 5-star review in the Apple iTunes section, or you could email us at KamenetskyBrothers@gmail.com. Plenty of different ways if you want to be part of the show, and we really want you to be.
We are reachable. So plenty of things to discuss in the context of ESPN's annual summer predictions. They do this every year, and they are out, both team predictions and player predictions. And Andy, it starts, the headliner here is the MVP. And who exactly are the early favorites for MVP? The first name is one I think people will not be surprised at. Nikola Jokic, who is good. But right behind him, Andy, ahead of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, your reigning MVP, is our very own skinny Luka Dončić. He's favored, I guess, by ESPN folks to be second in the MVP this year, which means at the very least, people are expecting a very, very big season from Luka, one that probably looks a little bit more like the numbers he put up 2 years ago as to last year.
A bunch of different NBA pundits from ESPN were asked to weigh in on this, and some of them wrote, I guess, their summary of why they think the voting for each category went in particular way. From Ramona Shelburne, our friend over at ESPN, quote, either voter fatigue wears off quickly, or voters were very impressed by Nikola Jokic's head-to-head battle with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the second round of the 2025 playoffs. The three-time MVP came in as a heavy favorite to win for a fourth time in our preseason survey, almost doubling the votes for SGA to repeat. Voters also seemed impressed by Luka Dončić's offseason transformation as the svelte version of the Los Angeles Lakers point guard. Came in second in early voting. Team success always plays a factor in voting, which is probably why SGA has slipped to third. In other words, he already elevated the Thunder to a championship and was recognized as the MVP for doing that. But what if there's even another level for him and the youngest championship team in decades to reach? I would definitely, if you're pricing in success as part of your MVP criteria, even though it is always hard to repeat, I would definitely not hold that against the Thunder heading into things, because I think they're going to be really good again.
I am excited. I mean, just you look at like what he's done, and I realize, off-season international basketball is not a perfect proxy for what's going to happen this year in the NBA. And I understand Luka's outside shot isn't falling and all that kind of stuff. But when you look at sort of the explosiveness, and you see the clips and you watch the games and you see the highlights and the analysis of people who are in the building, watching him play, watching him practice, like he is moving better. He's not, we're not talking about above the rim Luka, high flying Luka. I don't think anybody expects that sort of like the guy who came into the NBA as a rookie
almost a third of his career dunks came in during that rookie year. He has yet to dunk as a Laker.
Yep.
I'm calling it now. At least one dunk.
It's just like I look at this and like you see just a quarter step better on the perimeter means getting a guy on your hip versus getting a guy in front of you and settling for like a mid-range jumper. And yes, like it's easier to do that against Great Britain than it is, I don't know, the Grizzlies. But at the same time, he doesn't have LeBron James next to him and Austin Reeves and some, Rui Hachimura, Marcus Smart. Like he's going to be playing with a better cast of characters that will garner more respect, to say the least, Andy. In these warm-up games, folks are tilting their defensive orientation towards Luka Dončić. I did forget to remind people, Andy, that today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. But again, I go back to it. It's not just for Luka to finish second in the MVP. He's going to have to not only put up the types of numbers 33, 8, 9, 9 and 8 or whatever he did a couple years ago. The Lakers are going to have to win 50 games or so. Like if the Lakers win 45, 44, 42, and Luka puts up those numbers, he's not finishing second in the MVP.
Unlikely. I mean, it's not impossible. We've seen the exceptions to the rule, like when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double. I believe the Thunder were a 6th seed that year, and he ended up winning MVP. And Russ really was, in his own right, one of the stories of the league, especially, I believe that was the first season in OKC post KD, but for the most part, you are correct. Like there is a, you must be this tall to ride the ride type standard for MVP voting. And a lot of that beyond the numbers is also the team success. It was interesting. And we'll get into some of these other ESPN voting criteria, but on Tuesday afternoon, I, along with DeMarco Farr, hosted a show for 710 ESPN at Pechanga Resort Casino as part of the Lakers golf tournament that they were having for the Lakers Youth Foundation. And as is always the case, they bring in a bunch of former Lakers who play in this tournament. Also, by the way, Bronny played in the tournament. I didn't get a chance to talk to Bronny, but heard from more than a few people. Bronny's golf game is actually pretty good. And for the time being, maybe the one thing better than the old man's. But, because LeBron has famously taken up golf this summer. And
he was live tweeting tournaments this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He is apparently a big Fleetwood fan. LeBron, he's taken a shine to Fleetwood. But
Tommy Fleetwood.
From what I understand, Bronny actually is the superior golfer. But anyway, a few of the people that were put in front of DeMarco and I included Michael Cooper, Sasha Vujacic, Byron Scott, Robert Horry, and a couple things came up. First of all, Sasha, I thought this was really interesting. He was talking about Luka and some commonalities that he sees between Luka and Kobe, who Sasha played with for years, part of the 2009-2010 championships. Quote, not to diss Dallas, but Luka's lights and capabilities were way too big for Dallas, that spotlight. I think Luka is the perfect guy that we need in LA to carry us to the next championship. And I said it a long time ago. When I watch him play, there are glimpses that I see from Kobe in his eyes. He plays with a smile, but he wants to kill you. And that's what it is. There was a saying in our locker room, when you smell blood, you go at him, right? And I think Luka is one of those very few individuals in the league that has that demeanor and has that mindset and trying to go to the next level. And that is part of, I think, that MVP picture. It's very difficult to think of an MVP that doesn't have that killer in them, but also, too, that instinct to, suss out weakness and go right at you. And Luka really is like Kobe, like make it clear. He's not at Kobe's level, I think, both in terms of overall talent and certainly not success. But if you're talking about dudes who are wired sickly competitive and also really do take pleasure in destroying opponents, Luka actually is a lot like Kobe. Yeah. Again, tons of other ground to make up if you want to make that comparison.
Right. We're obviously not saying that Luka has accomplished what Kobe has. And
trust me, it needs to be clarified.
I don't care about the argument about who's the better player, but I do think, and I will tell you where I don't necessarily agree or disagree with Sasha's comments, but the important place where I think he's dead on correct, I'll tell you next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether 401ks, properties, or investments. Side note, the hell is wrong with you people? And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. You can link all your accounts in minutes. I guess for some people, learn what accounts you have and see clear data visuals, smart characterizations of your spending. And you can feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. As an example, my daughter just started high school, which means I got to be thinking about college already, tuition, dorm expenses, all these things that are really daunting. Monarch Money can help me streamline spending, find areas that I can be more efficient, create a plan for the next step. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
So before we move on, do want to let people know that we have an important request. And by we, I mean not just us at Locked On Lakers, but the entire network. Locked On, the network, wants to hear from you. We have put together a survey to learn more about what our listeners and viewers want and make your favorite podcasts even favoritier. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, answer questions about our advertising, and much more. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. We know sometimes, these things are not necessarily tons of fun to do. So incentive, everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes as well. Get yourself a chance to win one of them $100 gift cards. Thank you very much for helping us make the product better. Here's the part where I think Sasha may be right, he may be wrong, and I don't really care. I don't know if Luka was too big for Dallas. I don't know. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, Nico sure said he was too big for Dallas. Boom!
That was actually really funny.
That was really funny.
I like that. That was really good.
Come on. I mean, it was.
Go ahead.
There.
Do it, Andy. Go ahead.
It was right there.
Give yourself one of those. That was well done.
To be clear, I think Nico was wrong. I'm just saying it is what Nico thought.
So does Dallas, like the city. But yeah, no, we'll pause and acknowledge what you just did because it was good work. So like he didn't want to leave. It wasn't one of these situations where he was clearly, feeling the constraints of small town Texas life and needed to get, like, he wasn't going anywhere. He had a whole tour planned where he was going to sign an extension over the summer.
He started building a second house in Dallas
just in case his first one got dirty. So like I don't know if Dallas was too big for him. I don't care. What I do think Sasha's exactly right about, though, and is highly relevant for us here in Los Angeles, is that LA, and specifically the spotlight of the Lakers, is definitely not too big for him.
No.
Because it doesn't matter if it was, too big, too small in the old place. What matters is he well suited for what it is to be a Laker? And I'm not talking about the, understanding the championships and the what it mean, the heritage. I just mean, like, it comes with an incredible amount of scrutiny, an enormous amount of pressure, and you have to love that. You have to thrive in it, as opposed to being someone who can be beaten down by it periodically. And I think while generally speaking, for example, they overcame it, players like Pau Gasol, players like Anthony Davis had moments where the LA of it all, so to speak, you could tell was harder for them than it was for Kobe, for LeBron, for what I think it's going to be with Luka. And if you're going to go all in for the next decade on a player, you want first and foremost, take care of your body, all the skills, that great. Secondly, though, he's got to be built for it. And Luka is 100% built for it.
It's funny also, too, when you mention the idea of taking care of your body and all the amounts of dedication, like in all facets that come with being the face of the Lakers, but also winning MVP, taking your team to the finals, winning a championship. Michael Cooper, one of the guys that stopped by, said to me and DeMarco, quote, "The fact that Luka has taken the commitment to get in the best shape he's been in, that tells you something right there." But then he noted how with the Lakers, it's not just about competing or the regular season, it's about winning championships. And then it was interesting. DeMarco asked Byron Scott what he thinks it takes to be an MVP, like his criteria for being an MVP. And Byron said, quote, "You got to lead your team to a championship or somewhere near it. That's number one. And number two, you got to make the players around you better. It's as simple as that. And for me, number three, you got to be a player that's great on both ends of the floor." But then I thought this was interesting and smart from Byron. You don't have to be a great individual defender, but if you're not a great individual defender, then you've got to be a great team defender. And that third effort on the defensive end is what really matters. Magic wasn't a great one-on-one defender, but man, you talk about a great team defender, one of the best you'll ever see. And his IQ made him that. He knew where to be and when to be there. Everybody looks at scoring and all that stuff. Byron went on to say, there's a lot of guys in this league that can score, but if you can make your teammates better and you can win games and also make your teammates better on the defensive end, to me, that's the criteria. And I thought the part that Byron brought up, about just defense, and Robert Horry, we were talking with him later, and DeMarco had asked him if he thought Luka could ever be a top 5 player. And I'll read the quote later, but in a nutshell, he said no, because like top 5 of all time, to be clear, not top 5 in the league, top 5 all time. But Robert Horry said the defense is what ultimately for him keeps Luka out of that conversation in all likelihood, beyond the fact that it's just really damn hard. But I thought the part that Byron brought up about being a great team defender, and that if you're not a great individual defender one-on-one, and I think there's probably I think both of us think Luka is sometimes better at that than his rep, but it's never going to be his calling card.
Right.
But Luka absolutely has it in him, and frankly needs to find it on a regular basis of being a great team defender. And I thought the comp to Magic was great, in the sense that Magic overcame the individual defensive weaknesses to contribute in a different way, but also too, as Byron said, the IQ. And Luka is one of those guys who is at least on Magic's level with basketball IQ and anticipation and things like that. Like even somebody like D'Angelo Russell, I think, was at times a better team defender than he got credit. And I think the reason that he was okay at it is because as a point guard and somebody who I think read the floor pretty well, I think D'Lo could sometimes just anticipate certain things that can happen. Luka's better at that stuff than D'Lo, and is also he's I think a better defender than D'Lo anyway.
He is, and he's the size helps. He's a little
absolutely
stronger and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But the biggest thing, and we were as supportive of D'Angelo Russell as anyone, but we all love our children, but we are certainly aware of their flaws even as they grow up. D'Lo had a problem with give a bleep consistently, or being plugged in consistently and engaging like so much of what you're talking about in terms of really being a smart team defender is just being engaged for every second of every possession you're on the floor. Like Rui, the biggest difference between Rui last season and Rui, say, the 2 seasons before that, is there just fewer possessions where Rui would sort of briefly check out or seem to lose focus or not look at the right thing or whatever. He stayed engaged. He's not a good defender, but he was a much better team defender last year just because the engagement level went up. And Luka, when if you leave him in situations where he's going to be out on an island and you allow people to hunt him, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen over the course of the season. Offenses are too good and too smart. But if you can construct enough of a defense around it to minimize those things, or at least make it harder for teams to where they spend, 17 seconds or 18 seconds of the shot clock trying to pick on Luka. Okay, well, maybe you end up with a good shot at the end, but maybe you don't. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what goes on. But if Luka is engaged for all 24 of those seconds, especially in those moments where teams can't find ways to pick on him, he is good at stepping in front of the path, anticipating where the ball is going, all that stuff, because he sees stuff better than anybody on your team. I mean, he knows what you're doing. So that part I think is a great insight. 100% agree.
And one of the only guys in the league, actually, who can read what is about to happen as well as Luka is actually his teammate, LeBron, who also directly or indirectly comes up in a few of these ESPN NBA punditry.
Why am I excited, people watching on YouTube? Because this is how you know we've been working together for a long time. Because when I said that stuff, I was hoping and setting you up for this very seg into the next segment. That's good work. You're really on fire tonight, Andy.
We're going to talk about that coming up next. So there were 3 other categories among the ESPN polls. Team turmoil, like in other words, the team that is going to encounter the most turmoil in the 25-26 season, the player most likely to make a trade request, and also the team most likely to make a move, like a move of significance at some point in the season. Team turmoil, Lakers.
Yes.
Barely behind the Milwaukee Bucks, who came in the number 1 spot, 41 points. The Lakers, 32 points at number 2. Barely. God, this is almost terrifying, even though I'm not particularly worried about them being correct. The fact that they just barely beat the Suns, who are in a tie with the Celtics, who I don't understand how the Celtics could have.
I don't know what's turmoil-y about the Celtics. They've already done all their stuff. They're going to play the season and rebuild in the offseason.
Right. I don't understand where the turmoil actually comes, but just the idea that anybody would think that the Lakers are on the turmoil scale of the Suns, that feels like a reach to me. Player most likely to make a trade request. Zion, 10 votes. Giannis, 7 votes. And then coming in at number 3, LeBron James at 6 votes. I have a feeling that for a lot of the voters, team turmoil and team most likely to player most likely to request a trade, those are connected things. Yeah. And then perhaps the Lakers coming in second for team most likely to make a move behind Golden State. Maybe that's connected to LeBron, maybe not, who knows? But either way, these things all feel tangentially connected to LeBron. And I think, Brian, you will agree with me when I say I think all 3 of these, other than maybe just the Lakers making a move, because I think it is reasonably high, the likelihood of them making a trade at some point in the season, I think these fears are very overstated.
Look, I mean, ESPN has been very good to us over the course of our professional careers. I am not trying to rip on ESPN. Team turmoil, if it was an actual NBA award, would be named the Los Angeles Lakers award. The Lakers are always put in team turmoil because if anything happens, it's turmoil. Like there's just so much scrutiny. It goes back to what we were talking about in the first segment with Luka. There's just so much scrutiny on this team that if anything happens, turmoil. We've got turmoil. But the reality of it is, we covered this a little bit, I think, for Tuesday's show or Monday, I forget. But if the only way in my mind that LeBron demands a trade during the season is if the Luka, and I'm not even going to say it's going to be like Voldemort. I'm not going to even complete that sentence. You know what I'm thinking. And just the Lakers aren't winning enough games. Too many guys are in street clothes and they're not winning enough games. It's clear they're not going to make the playoffs, something like that. And LeBron is like, you know what? I don't got a lot of seasons left. I'd like to be playing meaningful basketball this spring. Trade me. Even that, I'm not sure it would be a done deal, but that is the only scenario. That's not turmoil. That sucks. That's unfortunate. This season really has been disappointing. Turmoil is, to me, teams going well. But LeBron's not, in this scenario, like LeBron's not getting the love that he wants or something like that. It's too much Luka's team and like LeBron wants out. It's castle palace intrigue and like guys stabbing each other in the back. And like JJ Redick sleeps with one eye open because you don't know what, Rui Hachimura is going to do because he's upset about his role in the rotation. And yes, Elmo, fire. Yeah, that's turmoil. That's much different than season's not going in the way we wanted because 3 or 4 things that you just can't predict happened. LeBron's not, unless that scenario, the turmoil scenario where LeBron asks out, is not going to happen. It is not.
I would be very surprised. I mean, the fact that Luka is on this team at all should at least remind us that you can never predict everything that's going to happen, because I think it's safe to say nobody saw that coming, including Luka, Anthony Davis, like everybody.
There are apparently 2 people who saw it coming.
Right. It was
3, I guess, if you count Genie.
Right. Very, very few people. But the idea that LeBron would be so put off with the idea that this now officially being Luka's team, that he would basically either half-ass it or refuse to buy in to the point where it creates so much tension that it culminates in some type of trade demand. Again, never say never, because you and I have covered the league for a long time. We've covered this team in particular for a long time. Like some people talking about their experiences in war. We've seen some bleep. But I do think it is pretty unlikely that if things are going well, if they are winning games, but LeBron would still allow dissatisfaction with his sort of grander place in the scheme of this team to allow him that would prompt him to say, I want to leave a team that's winning. That would be stunning to me. It would be stunning.
That's before you get to the question of where the hell are they going to send him?
Well,
like I'm not even getting into that, or the question of the enormous risk that they're taking by making a very big trade demand without some sort of destination in mind where those 2 things are related. I'm setting all of those things aside.
I think that piece of it, though, is difficult to set aside because LeBron is not going to publicly demand a trade without a place to go, because he does not want to make that move and then still end up with the Lakers.
Oh, it's absolutely not. But I'm saying is those 2 things are steps 2 and 3 of 3 or 4 or 5 part process that I don't even think you're ever going to get to, because I don't accept the premise of step 1, and step 1's not enough to get it done. So like it is LeBron's not going to be traded unless the season falls apart in, quite frankly, relatively amicable but unfortunate ways for the Lakers. And I look at this and I see Luke, the places where I see the Lakers showing up in ways that are negative, I just don't buy. And I am encouraged by, the idea that the Lakers have a genuine MVP candidate, in the best shape of his career, or certainly his, recent career. With a guy who I know, we'll save this maybe for another show, but Jason Timp, friend of the show, had a great segment. I think I retweeted it, where he talked about LeBron and the fears and concerns over his basketball mortality are well founded, just because of the context. But at the same time, he's a top 10 guy who has played more games with more productivity than about 90% of the stars in the NBA that we don't talk about in the same context as LeBron. So like the last couple seasons, at least, he's been quite durable and quite productive. If you get that again, combined with a better group, a 50-win team is better than they were at the end of last season. That is enough, Andy, to make me excited about what we're going to see this fall.
Absolutely. I mean, there is always going to be an anticipation and even an expectation of drama with the Lakers because by definition, the Lakers are just a dramatic team. Like that's just who they are. It's in their DNA to some degree. It's actually what they want. Like they don't like to be a low-key team in the league, but the idea of this sort of drama that manifests in turmoil, I don't see the immediate ingredients for it. Again, not saying it can't happen, but I don't see enough there sort of on the immediate horizon that feels like second place in team turmoil, only 4 points ahead of the Phoenix Suns.
Oh my God. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel. Again, leave us questions, leave us comments, contribute to the mailbag, and you could hear your name said aloud on a very, very well-received podcast. We will see everyone tomorrow.